So, do you ever have these things in life that you've struggled with for so long that it starts to feel like no matter what you do, you're never going to get past it? Like it's such an ingrained part of who you are that working on it almost feels pointless because there probably is no solution because you've tried other things and no matter what you do, it never seems to get any better. This is just the deal. This is your struggle for the rest of your life and you kind of just learn to live with it. So I've actually had this with a couple of things in my life, and stay with me because I'm going somewhere with this. But the first one was sugar. I used to have this insane, raging, out of control sugar addiction. Like it was nuts. It's really impossible to exaggerate how much of a slave to sugar I was. I went through a stretch of time where I woke up every single night in the middle of the night with such extreme sugar cravings that I actually got out of bed in the middle of the night to eat sugar. I mean, I just took a spoon and a bag of brown sugar and I would just eat spoonfuls of sugar and then go back to bed. So many things about this make my head just because, I mean, for one, these days, if I eat sugar even within about like 47 hours before I go to bed, there is no way I'm sleeping. Like I am so sensitive to sugar. I have to be so careful. So I don't know how I could go back to sleep. And then two, how can someone have such intense sugar cravings that they can't even get through the night, never mind the day? So for years, essentially, like, sugar was my master. It dictated my behavior and I was the slave, and it really felt like I was never going to get past it. It felt like just part of my biology and how I was made up, and it was bigger than me and stronger than me, and no matter how many times I tried to overcome it, I'm like, this is just it. This is going to be me for the rest of my life, dealing with this sugar monster, forever chasing me, forever demanding to be fed. And sometimes I think, what if I never got past it? Like, what if I really did have that for the rest of my life? My life would be so much more stressful now than it is. And the reason I'm telling you this sugar monster story is because it's a really good, I think, like vivid example of my experience with anxiety. Because the sugar one is really obvious. You know, you can see it. There's no denying it. Anyone within the vicinity of me could tell that I had a raging sugar addiction that I really, really could not get under control for the longest time. But with anxiety, it's a little bit more difficult to tell. So I've actually struggled with anxiety for just about as long as I can remember. Elementary school, I remember being fine. I remember being okay, just a regular, normal kid, not worried, not anxious, just life was good. But then I went into junior high, and junior high, like, effed me up. It was rough. I don't know what junior high is like for other people, but for me, the kids could be like really mean, especially the girls. Looking back, it's almost kind of impressive that they had the skills to be that mean at such a young age. It's like there were some of them that just rocked up to junior high, having gone through some extensive training course on just how to make other girls feel really, really small. And I, in junior high, was kind of prime pickings. I had to have like a bullseye on me. I was a really easy target. I had a perm. It was not pretty. I had braces. I had bad skin. I did not dress well, like at all. And this was the 80s, and I was dressing bad for the 80s. So that says something. I was a really good student. I got awards for getting good grades. And this wasn't even like full-on bullying or any of the really scary, horrible stuff that I read about. It was, on the spectrum, probably pretty mild, but it was enough for my fragile state, at that age to just really bring my feelings of self-worth like really, really low. And then after 3 years of being like, systematically torn down by mean children, I then went into the Shark Tank that is high school in a really fragile state. And high school was also tough, but kind of in a whole other way, and especially coming into it with such extreme feelings of low worth. And I think high school is already a time when people are struggling to fit in, struggling with their confidence and their identity and all of that. So me showing up, already feeling about this big and desperately wanting to be popular, it was just kind of a recipe for disaster. In my 20s was kind of just more of the same. I went through, I'd say, the majority of my 20s in the same anxious state. I just got really busy, and I just started working really hard at doing things that I thought would make the anxiety go away. Like working out a zillion times a week and trying to be the best student in university and get the highest marks in my class. And I think Looking back, I thought, like, if I achieved some of these things, like if my marks were good enough, if I was the best in the class, if I was in really good shape, if I had the most friends, whatever it is, then that anxiety would go away. Like I feel okay, like okay, I belong, I fit in, I don't have to worry anymore, everything's fine. So I just plowed through my 20s, going 24 hours a day, trying to be enough, and not even consciously aware of how bad the anxiety was. It's only looking back that I can see that it was in pretty much every moment of every day. Once I got into work, every meeting I went into, I was riddled with anxiety. Every time I had to speak to people, I was always nervous. And I recall getting to the end of my 20s and my early 30s and starting to become more aware of it and wondering if there was something wrong with me. And I contemplated a lot, like, if I should start taking medication. I thought maybe there's some sort of chemical imbalance in my body and I just need to address this. But something in my gut told me that that wasn't the answer, that I had to learn some skills. I just needed some tools. There was a way for me to get past this, and that by taking drugs to fix it wasn't going to be the answer. And I imagine for many people that is the answer. This is just me. This is just my experience, my body, what I went through. And for me, it just didn't feel right. And really, it wasn't until my 40s that I started to sort this out. My 40s. I went so long in this anxiety prison, really having no idea how to escape and not even really knowing if escape was possible. But like the sugar addiction, even though it felt impossible for so many years, I eventually did get past it. So I'm in no way an expert on this, but I have found some things that have been super, super helpful for me in getting past anxiety. So I thought I'll share them here because I know I'm not alone. And I know many other people face this. So for me, there ended up being 3 things that were really helpful in getting me past anxiety. And an interesting thing is actually that all these years, I'd actually been looking at anxiety wrong. I mean, for one, for me, it wasn't something biological. It wasn't something I was just born with, some prison I was going to be stuck in for the rest of my life. And also, I always thought I was going to have to learn some kind of skills. I thought I needed some tools, I needed some coping mechanisms, I needed to build up confidence. I had to do all these things to tackle the anxiety, to fight it. Like I was at a war with it and I needed to have a stronger army than the anxiety army so that I could overcome it. But that actually didn't end up being the case for me at all. It's really interesting, actually. I find this fascinating. It was about removing things. I didn't have to get anything new. I just had to take away layers of things that had been built on top of me over the years that were toxic and impeding my ability to function at the happy, comfortable level that I wanted to. For me, it was actually about understanding what anxiety was and what it was for me and where it was coming from, and then just stripping that away. And then once that stuff was stripped away, I was free to just kind of be me. All that was left was me, comfortable, happy in the world, and able to function. And just to quickly give credit where it's due, because I didn't come up with all of this stuff all on my own, there are a couple of main sources, couple awesome women in the world who helped me to understand my anxiety better and help me to get past it. And one of them is Rachel Hollis. I talk about her a lot. I think she's amazing. She's one of my gurus. She's an author and a motivational speaker, and she's got her own clothing line. She's just taking over the world. She's just really, really an impressive human, and I have learned so much from her. I am so grateful that she exists. And then the second was from a TED Talk that I watched, put on by a doctor that I wasn't previously familiar with, but she was also incredibly brilliant and insightful, and she taught me a lot. And her name was Dr. Agle. All right, so here are the 3 things that I learned, the 3 things that helped me to finally get past it's sometimes really crippling anxiety. And the first one, and this probably isn't going to be a shocker after everything that I've just shared, is understanding where that anxiety is coming from. And one of the main sources that my anxiety was coming from was feelings of low self-worth. So it wasn't a chemical imbalance. It wasn't some weird thing happening in my body. It was just being in a circumstance, some kind of situation, whatever it might be, where I'm feeling unsure of myself. I'm feeling like less than in some way. I'm feeling like I need to prove myself. I'm feeling like the people around me are better than me. And this, for me, brings on feelings of anxiety. And when you think about it, it's pretty easy and pretty understandable that we get into this way of thinking. I know that I'm not alone in this because With this connected world with social media and the internet, it's easier and easier to set higher and higher bars, benchmarks, things that we have to achieve for us to feel enough. And it seems like no matter how many of them we reach, we just keep piling on more. For example, we might think, okay, if I get a university degree, then I'm going to feel like enough. But then you get that university degree, you're like, oh, maybe I need a master's degree. All of a sudden, this bachelor's degree doesn't feel so impressive. Or like, once I have 1,000 followers, then I'll feel good. Then I'll feel like I'm enough. But then you reach 1,000, and now it's 10,000 or 100,000. And there's some whole other level that we're trying to reach before we're thinking that we'll finally be okay, like we're finally enough. And we might feel okay for a moment, whatever that thing is that we've set. Like, as soon as I lose 10 pounds, then I'm good. Then I can be comfortable and confident in my skin and everything will be all right. And we might lose that 10 pounds and we might feel okay for a little bit. But then all of a sudden we're like, oh, maybe I have another 10 pounds to lose and then I'll feel okay. And then you lose that weight and you're like, okay, I'm good. But then it doesn't last. Because I could really use some more muscle. So then we set that new benchmark and on it goes. All right, so that's the first thing. And then the second thing on this journey out of anxiety for me, and this has been the biggest one for me, is understanding that the vast majority of the time, actually, that if I'm feeling anxious in any kind of situation, if I'm having those feelings of anxiety, it's because I'm trying to please somebody. So if I ask myself enough questions, if I unpack it enough, when it all boils down to who am I trying to please? And it's really amazing how that understanding alone is enough for me for the vast majority of that anxiety to dissolve. Just seeing it for what it is in a way for me to push that toxic layer off of me. So for example, if I look at my to-do list at work and it's really long, I might start feeling anxiety. And I think on the surface that my anxiety is about that long to-do list and all the work that I have to do. But when I really break it down, if I ask myself enough questions, it's about who I'm trying to please. And I'm trying to please, my boss, the people that I work with. And I think that long to-do list means that I'm not on top of my job, or I'm not good at my job. I'm not reliable. I'm not organized. I'm just somehow not good enough. But when I see it for what it is, when I look at that list and I realize that anxiety is me trying to please somebody, it just dissolves. Because once I take that away, I instantly remember that I know I'm a hard worker. I know I'm organized. I know I'm competent. I know I'm all the things that any boss really wants their employee to be. So having a long to-do list is fine. It's just part of life. That happens sometimes. And I'm not living in a state of trying to please my boss once I recognize that that's what it is. Because she's either going to see me for what I'm contributing or she's not. And I know in myself that I'm doing a good job and I'm at peace with that. So it's been really fascinating how just getting that piece of the puzzle, understanding that root cause of anxiety for me being a need to please others has really helped me to just shed it and leave it behind. And this all ties into the feelings of self-worth. Over the years, building up a feeling of self-worth, how I got to this place of feeling good about who I am as a person is really just paying attention to my thoughts throughout the day on a moment-by-moment basis. And then checking in, are these truth or are these false? Let's examine this. Does a long to-do list mean I'm a crappy employee? And then I see that it doesn't, and then I can leave it behind. So it's just been about, on a moment-by-moment basis, removing those layers, questioning that faulty thinking, and leaving behind that idea in life that someone else's opinion of me matters more than my own opinion of myself. All these years I thought it was about gaining confidence. I had to get something. This confidence was something tangible I had to find and utilize, and it was like a toolbox of stuff that was going to make me a confident person. But it was never that. I never had to get anything. I just had to remove the crap that had been piled on me over the years. And all that was left was just me. Just happy, comfortable, confident me. And sometimes, here's a little tip, something that works really well for me. Maybe it'll work for you. But I actually envision myself, and this is going to date me, but I've already said I'm in my 40s, so there's no question about that. And plus there's the wrinkles and all that. But I think of the movie Ghost. And if you're too young to know this movie, it was a movie with Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze, and there were ghosts that roamed the planet among us, and sometimes they could sort of take over a living human like a host and start, controlling that human. But in the movie, this living human host, if they tried hard enough, they could squeeze that ghost out of them, like just really concentrate and you'd see this sort of ghost leave them as they pushed it out. So if I'm having a moment where I'm feeling anxious, I know I just have to remove that layer. I have to just get rid of that thing that's been piled on top of me in my life. And I actually picture myself sort of like squeezing it out of me. And then once it's gone, I just feel good. I'm just myself. Myself was always me without anxiety. Anxiety was just something that got piled on top of me. And the third thing that's helped me to get past my anxiety is just to expand my circle of comfort in life. Because part of my anxiety I've come to understand, and like I said, this whole journey of getting past anxiety for me has just been understanding it, understanding the root cause. And one of them for me is just new, unfamiliar circumstances bring on anxiety. It's scary sometimes. This YouTube channel is actually a great example because it is so far outside my circle of experience, my comfort zone. All of it was new, and I was in uncharted territory for a really long time. And that was a lot. It was a lot to take in. But by pushing myself outside of those boundaries of what I was used to, outside of my circle of normalness, it created this whole new circle of normalness for me. So now I have this whole new range of experiences in which I just feel okay. And when that circle is made so much bigger than what it used to be, all of a sudden that stuff that used to be in your smaller circle of normalness just is so ridiculously manageable. If I have to do a presentation at work for a group of people now, it's easy. I don't even bat an eye. That kind of stuff used to stress me out. It was nerve-wracking talking to a group full of people. What are they going to think? Blah, 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 blah. I think we've all been there. But now it's just, I make videos and potentially thousands of people are going to see them. So I've had to get used to that feeling. So now talking to 12 people feels like a walk in the park. So by continually pushing myself and pushing those boundaries of normalness and comfort outwards, it makes my everyday life just super easy. Writing my book was another great example of this. And you know I never miss an opportunity to plug my book. But for the most part, people have been very supportive, and the comments and reviews have been really, really kind and just really glowing, and it's just been amazing. But some of them are brutal. Like, people can be harsh. And when it's on a story you've written about your life, something that's so deeply personal, and then the people just tear you down, it can be hard to take. It's the same with YouTube. 99% of what people write and comment is just so amazing. And I just want to reach through the screen and hug you all and just thank you for being such awesome humans, because it really touches my heart, and it's just a really wonderful thing. But some people are really freaking mean, like just cruel. So I've had to get used to that, and I've had to, build up sort of this new circle of normalness around the kind of feedback that I get from people in the world. So now, if I have a family member or a person at work who says something maybe slightly critical to me, it doesn't even faze me. Whereas before, that kind of stuff could have turned me upside down for days. Like, it would have bothered me to my core, and I would have been talking about it with people and complaining, and I might have even started to cry. But now I'm like, that is nothing. Like, that is nothing. So that's the third thing. Keep pushing those boundaries, that circle of normalness, that comfort zone, so that, the everyday stuff is just so manageable and you don't even bat an eye. And of course I still feel anxiety sometimes. It's a part of the human experience. I don't think it's ever going to go away entirely, but it's come from, here all the way down to here. And I imagine some people might be thinking, well, like, I have big things in my life that are causing me anxiety. Like this, there are things that I can't control, so there's just no way that I can deal with this anxiety. Like, maybe I'm facing chronic health conditions, chronic fatigue syndrome, ME/CFS, for example. And I've been there. And for me, ME/CFS brought on a whole host of negative feelings, but anxiety was not one of them. It brought on fear and terror and depression and hopelessness and frustration. because it was, threatening to take away my life. That was taking away my life, but I wasn't feeling anxious. Anxiety didn't come from that. These kinds of things to me are like, if I'm out on a hike and I see a bear in the woods, I'm not going to feel anxious. Like that's not an anxiety situation. That's fear. That's terror and a whole bunch of other stuff. So at least in my experience, anxiety is something that once it's understood can become very manageable. And it's not about the circumstances in your life so much as it is about the circumstances of your thoughts and your understanding of what's causing it and how to unpack that and how to remove it and take that out of your life. Of course, there are people that are going to have, something in their physiology that's causing it. And I can't speak to that. But for me, this is what it's been. So there you go. Those are the things that have dramatically helped me to get past anxiety in my life. And I put it out there. I hope that something here has been helpful, perhaps, or sparked some kind of insight for you in your own life. And if so, I'd love it if you could give this video a thumbs up. And I put out content like this every single week. So if you'd like to hear more of this kind of stuff, all about health and happiness, please consider subscribing. I have a new video out every single Monday morning. And then if I have a week where I'm feeling especially on top of things, I'll have a second video that comes out sometime later in the week. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Whatever you're facing, I know you can tackle it. I don't even have to know you personally to know that, because we all have that ability inside of us to keep learning and keep growing and, having new skills and new insights and to get past things. So keep at it. And I am here cheering you on. This is it. This is the one. Make it count. Are you in a good spot? People want to listen to you. This is a good story. I'm excited about this story. So I've had this happen so for years, sugar was my master but eventually, sirens, 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 more sirens. Let's do the siren song. We could sing all day long, 'cause in my neighborhood, there's nothing that rhymes with neighborhood, but the sirens go all day and all night. And I smile, but inside I'm raging, 'cause I'm so sick of the sirens. More sirens. A chance to fix my hair. A chance to stretch. A chance to show off my bad voice. Did my hair look like this the whole time?